If you've been following Apple news in the tech world in the past few months, then you would have been seeing a lot of back and forth between this tech giant and app developers. For years, they have to endure the monopoly of the Apple App Store and its exorbitant fees. But there's a lot more to this story. We're about to take a deep dive into how the Apple App Store works and why most app developers have no choice but to give in to this bully. The App Store rules. Of course, the rules of the App Store are pretty much regular, except for a few special additions from Apple that make a ton of difference. These are designed to make sure that no one is able to stop the monopoly that Apple has for its iOS devices, especially the 30% tax, which sits at the center of this monopoly. Apple once rejected a brand new email app from DHH, founder of Ruby on Rails, because they didn't want to pay 30% tax on all purchases made on their app. The thing is, we can understand why they would reject this offer since the app costs just about $100 a year. So when you're done removing the 30% tax and every other federal tax they have to pay, what's left is quite little and insignificant. This is not the only company that had to go head-to-head with Apple over this in the last few years. We witnessed the same with Fortnite, which had issues with Google Play Store over the same 30% tax, but they finally caved in. This has made some companies consider including that extra 30% on their prices to make up for this rule. So you would notice that the prices are different for a lot of apps that charge users the extra 30%. You can find this on the YouTube app, Spotify, Audible, and even LinkedIn that have different pricing for their premium versions on Apple devices. And who can blame them, really? Apple has rules that are dangerously close to crippling the app economy. It's becoming really difficult for developers to monetize their apps enough to make some decent money after all their efforts. Now, the YouTube app has something called Super Chats, where you can pay a creator during a live show. But the awful thing here is that Apple takes a 30% cut from this, and of course, YouTube will take theirs as well. At the end of the day, after all that work, they have less than half of the amount going into their pockets. The tax is heavy, and this is limiting the growth of developers compared to the normal fees that we get from payment channels like PayPal, MasterCard, and Visa. But these iOS app developers can't use these channels either. In 2019, Apple claimed they have made as much as $500 billion from in-app purchases alone, and it's thanks to rules like this. So if you were to develop an app for fun and suddenly it's getting quite popular, then you realize after a lot more work on it, you can monetize with some premium services. You have a lot of fees to face. First, there's the 30% to the App Store, and then about 40% goes to the federal government. By the time you add up the cost of advertising, outsourcing some tasks that you can't handle yourself, artwork, developers, and of course server fees, you have next to nothing left for your troubles. And that's where a lot of the guidelines on the Apple App Store works against developers. One of them is that developers can't tell users to buy their app on an external website, where they won't get charged extra. That's why you have a lot of these apps dancing around this fact. A good example is the Netflix app, where you can't really see an obvious way to create an account since that would cost more. But since they're not allowed to tell you how to create an account, the hint is there for users to sign up somewhere else and then get back into the app to sign in as a member. The App Store also insists that users can only unlock functionality or other features using in-app purchases and not any external payment method. What this means is that app developers cannot directly or indirectly tell iOS users to use another purchasing method apart from in-app purchases. So this automatically disqualifies them from payment channels like Stripe and PayPal that don't take as much fees as Apple. That right there is the power of monopoly. Everyone else can see the sheer ridiculousness of this, except Apple themselves. Thankfully, they reviewed the 30% tax policy recently and only reserved it for those that make more than $1 million on the App Store. So those who earn less this amount would be paying about a 15% tax to Apple instead. How Apple App Store maintains their monopoly. So how has Apple been able to maintain its monopoly for this long, and the developers have no choice but to comply? Well, apart from not being able to go on any developer website directly, no one can ever create another app store of their own. So everything you do on the iOS space has to go through the App Store, where there is a tax cut. Apple has been able to clear out any chance of competition, especially as developers can't build another version of their store. You know what would happen if there was an alternative to the App Store. It would definitely be cheaper alongside a lot of other features that would have users running away from Apple in a heartbeat. So that you don't get to do it better than them in the first place, Apple doesn't even give you the chance to try. Let's take a look at the Facebook app as a great example. The app actually has a section with tons of games for users that are signed in on Facebook. But Apple was able to clamp down on this. On the App Store, they are not allowed to monetize any of these games. Simply put, they can't sell them or try to replicate the functionality of this App Store. Apart from this, you can't go to the iOS store to search for any of these games. These are disabled. So you would just have to scroll manually through a list of random games, pick your preferred option, and then play. Usually, you would expect to see these games arranged in the form of a grid, with search functionality. But Apple has made these restrictions imposed on the Facebook Game Store to stop it from overshadowing their App Store. It was really quite popular at the time until it died a slow death, and that's why the Apple App Store is the only distribution point fueling this digital economy, with nobody being able to compete with them at all. No one can create another App Store, at least for now, and you can't use any other type of payment processor that is not approved by Apple. This strategy alone is responsible for their huge revenue and developers having no chance but to follow the lead of their master. Even worse is the fact that thousands of developers are struggling to get in on the Apple Developer Program, where they will give Apple more and more of their money, about $100 a year. When you think about the fact that mobile phones would be nothing without mobile apps, then you begin to find it super strange that Apple doesn't treat developers any better. Wouldn't it be great if apps could choose any payment processor they wanted without necessarily going through the most expensive channel and enriching Apple's pockets more than normal? Wouldn't it be cool to give developers the option of picking the service with the lowest transaction fees? Wouldn't users benefit more from the option of downloading an app directly from a developer's website if they trust them enough without waiting for the app review process on the App Store? As it stands, Apple has the power to reject various apps, and there are many of them that are disallowed in the App Store. A few of them are gambling and cryptocurrency apps. They also don't allow copycat apps, but who gets to decide the apps that fall under this category? Well, a few people are hired to reject any app that has a minimum functionality or that they feel is another version of an app already on the store. But there are apps like the Calculator app that would not pass this scrutiny because it doesn't have enough functionality. And when it's not accepted on the App Store, that's pretty much the end of the road because no one would be able to install it on their iOS device without Apple's approval. Still, this is a practice that will not end anytime soon, except somehow we have an alternative to the Apple App Store that gives more developers the chance to be flexible. But for now, the Apple App Store Mafia is alive and well. Now you know the insane story behind the Apple App Store Mafia, and that's a wrap. What do you hate the most about iOS devices? Let us know in the comments. Did you like the video? Well, we're always posting amazing content like this, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out. Thanks for watching.